Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome to the John Riley Project. It's New Year's time. We're going to be talking about a bunch of great stuff here in the city of Poway. How are you? Thanks for joining us. And I'm here with my good friend, Mr. Pete Neal. How you doing, Pete?
I'm doing well. I'm sitting here and coming into the new year with all sorts of cheer.
All sorts of cheer. So we're going to talk about a lot of different things. We're going to talk about Poway issues. We're going to talk about Candy Cane Court, which is the neighborhood where you live here in Poway. We're going to talk about Poway issues, news. And if you have any comments or questions, you are free to join us in the live stream. You could just type in your question or comment on X, on Facebook, or on YouTube in the live chat portion, and we'll see you here on the screen. We'll get you involved in the discussion. But how you doing, Pete?
I'm good.
Good.
Now that the Christmas holidays are over, I'm getting back into my non-stressed mode. This year was extremely stressful because I've been doing candy cane courts now for 29 years.
That's a lot of work.
It's a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
First of all, you got to remember, I'm kind of a lazy guy.
You?
So the fact that we decorate and people come see us means I don't have to go anywhere. If I want to talk to people, I can just go out in my front yard in the driveway and just talk to people. And that's what I really enjoy. It drives my wife nuts because I keep going out of the house in the front and talking for an hour or two.
But that's so you.
It's very cool.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Cool. And I had two special instances this year.
Okay.
That stand out. It was shortly after dinner time, and I was sitting on the couch watching TV, waiting for the right time, and the doorbell rang. And Wendy was closest to the door, so she went to answer the door. And all of a sudden, I hear her call out, "Santa!" That's kind of weird. She goes, "Santa!" So I get up off the couch and I start walking towards the front door. And I get there. There's an entire family there in the front porch. All right. And Wendy looks down at this little girl and she says she wanted to see Santa Claus.
Okay.
So this was cool. All right. Somebody actually came and rang the doorbell to talk to Santa Claus. All right. Didn't have the hat on, didn't have nothing. I mean, I'm just in regular civvies.
Right.
Right. And I said, well, I'm not Santa, but, we're related. And the little girl goes, "No, you're Santa Claus." I said, what makes you think that? And she says, "Come here." So I squat down. I'm 6'4". She's about this high.
Yeah.
So I bend over and she grabs a hold of the beard and she pulls on it.
Oh.
She says, "You see, it's real. You're Santa Claus."
Awesome.
I said, there's no arguing with that. This is classic.
That is great.
It was a great, 2024 Christmas. That was one of the moments.
That's cool.
That was very cool. Yeah. Now the other one was the gingerbread house, the thing that Wendy built and designed.
Mm-hmm.
And I put the plywood together and I make it so it resembles every year. But the gingerbread house was totally Wendy's work. And typically what happens, we got it set up the driveway a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
off to one side, but still accessible. They can come up and get pictures in front of it and things like that. So I come out of the house and there's a young couple with two kids, one in a stroller, one barely walking. And they're looking at the gingerbread house. So I walk up to overhear the conversation. And they said something and I responded to it. And they said, "Oh yeah, I've been coming here since I went to high school at Poway High." I said, "Really?" He says, "Yeah, the gingerbread house was a special thing for us. I remember because this is where I asked my wife to marry me."
At your gingerbread house?
At my gingerbread house.
Okay.
And he says, "And we've been coming back ever since."
Nice.
So that was another big moment in the history of candy cane courts for me, was that guy bringing his family back year after year after year after year.
Okay.
So, yeah.
But you've told me a lot of other stories of other people like in previous years.
Previous years.
Yeah. I mean, and some of those are spectacular. You want to share any of those stories?
My favorite of all time
Mhm.
is Christmas Eve. The family was not done with dinner yet, but I decided to go out front on Christmas Eve just to get a lay for the land. Am I going to have room to put the fire out and the family come out and sit around the fire? So I'm coming down the court was a lady and a guy, and she was dressed in an evening gown, and he was in a tuxedo.
Oh,
These people are dressed to the nines, you know. And I'm watching them. They finally get to my driveway, and I say, "You realize you're way overdressed for Candy Cane Lane, Candy Cane Courts, excuse me, Candy Cane Courts." And they responded to me, "Yes, we know, but we've been out to another place, and this we're doing on the way home." But it was in a foreign accent, Middle Eastern.
Oh,
all right. So immediately I cued on that. I said, "Where exactly are you from?" And she said, "Bethlehem." And I said, "Pennsylvania?" And she says, "No, the Bethlehem." And I said, "In my driveway, I've got a woman that looks spectacular and her husband on Christmas Eve. You can't beat that."
That's pretty cool.
That is way cool. So, I mean, Candy Cane Courts for me is an investment in talking to people, listening to people.
Yeah.
Telling them the stories,
29 years you've been doing it?
29 years. Yeah.
I mean, that whole community really steps up to the plate and really knocks it out of the park, don't they?
And I tell that story to countless people. We moved in 95 in January, February time frame. And so I went a whole year in the house before Christmas was rolling around again. Okay. And we got this thing in the mailer from a lady down the street. Vicki Lammers was her name. She's moved now. She's gone. But Vicki Lammers put these instructions in everybody's mailbox on how to make candy canes out of PVC pipe.
Oh.
I looked at that and I said, "Nobody's telling me how to decorate my damn house." And I threw it in the trash. Right. Well, in those years, Thanksgiving, we spent going up to LA to see family up there. But Sunday night, I come back and the whole damn street was lined with these white candy canes.
Cool.
Except for my house.
Oh.
I'm digging through the trash looking for the damn instructions.
So you're the Grinch.
Yeah, I was the Grinch. So, yeah. But yeah, I made the candy canes and joined in. So
I mean, it's spectacular what they do there. I mean, you guys had like the horse and the carriage, carrying people around.
Yep.
People like they cruise through there. They walk through there with their families. I mean, it's like a big time event.
Yeah. On Google Maps, somebody put a pin there that says Candy Cane Lanes. And I keep trying to correct everybody on that because it's actually Candy Cane Courts.
Right.
Okay. So I went into Google Maps and I corrected this stupid pin. I did that, a number of years back. So every year I start getting counts on it. We had 193,000 hits on that pin this last year.
Really?
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
70,000 used the pin as directions to get to our place.
And that's only a fraction of the total people that showed up.
It's amazing. And it's spread. It's not just Butterwood Court anymore. It's the 3 courts have expanded over the first 5 years or so. And then it's expanding out there. It's working its way up into the Palisades now. I mean, it's spreading.
Yeah.
It's huge. And this year, I actually had to go to city council and thank the city.
All right.
This year because of they put trash cans out this year. And for every 3 or 4 houses.
No, that's good.
Cans out
that's
there.
good.
All right. Because the kids are selling, hot chocolate and paper cups. And it was ending up all over the neighborhood. But the city's putting these things out. But what really set me apart. They've done that in the past, but this year, the guy was there emptying each and every one of those every day at sunrise.
Really?
Every morning he was out there dumping those things. And I'm saying, I'm barely out of bed. And this guy's already at work emptying the trash in my neighborhood.
Wow.
That's of note.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. Yeah.
Traffic is an issue.
Mhm.
You know, we have to do all our shopping before sunset. Otherwise, there's no going to the store. And I went to the city council and said, thank you. Police cruisers are helping out. So not only do we get the police coming through once in a while, but the volunteer people, they were coming through and walking around. And so, yeah, the city went a little over the top helping out candy cane courts this year.
Nice.
And I think it's the first time I ever went to a city council meeting and said something good.
There's a lot of good things that happen in Poway. I mean, come on. And you got to give credit where credit's due.
You have to.
You have to. You got to
Yeah.
be balanced on this sort of thing.
Yeah.
But you know, if the city wasn't involved, that could turn into a mess.
Yeah.
Right. With the trash, the traffic.
The trash, the traffic, they open up the park. They leave the restrooms open so the people can use the restrooms in
thank
the
God.
park
Yeah.
area.
Yeah.
The parking is available. Okay. Because usually it's shut down at sunset, you know,
Mhm.
but not during the month of December. It's open.
That's cool. That is cool.
So think of the number of people in the city of Poway that have to go a little bit over the top on their workday just so we can have Christmas decorations.
Yeah. Yeah. Right on. That's good.
It's very cool.
Yeah, but there's already a street maintenance crew, and
Yeah.
it's just probably just an extension of what they're already doing.
Yeah.
But it's nice that they're giving some special love in that area because I'm sure the city of Poway takes pride in what your neighborhood does because it represents the community so well.
I think it does.
Yeah.
You know, for the most part, everybody, I mean, every house participated this year. So it was very cool.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And the new neighbors that have moved in that have taken over decorating the houses that historically didn't get decorated, they were out selling hot chocolate
Good.
for donations.
Okay.
You know, not selling, donating.
Right.
We had a problem last year with a vendor hired by one of our neighbors to come and do a party at his house.
Hmm.
The vendor saw the traffic and said, I'm coming back.
Oh, yeah.
So all of a sudden we had a flood of vendors in.
And then, okay. I could see how that could be a problem.
That became a real problem.
Yeah.
Because people are parking to get food.
Oh, yeah.
Traffic was worse than ever. So
It's like a street
yeah.
fair.
Fortunately, there's a thing on Poway's books that no vending on the streets.
Okay.
So they just put that up on, they put a sign up on the entrance into the Butterwood courts here, into the courts area. You know, keep moving, obey the rules, park.
Right.
Yeah. Well, they added in no vendors. Clause number and everything was there. So
Yeah. And then, of course, if a homeowners offering free treats for donations in their driveway, that's okay.
that's okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because if you could have a vendor in your driveway, but he's going to be servicing you. Can't be selling stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it would be the Delmar Fair there.
Right.
Chicken Charlie's would show up with everything. Yeah, I mean, that could be something.
There was only one downside to, I came down with a head cold the day before Christmas Eve. So I was not able to do Santa this year. So I hope you don't mind that I put the Santa hat on.
No, it's great.
Little carryover.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, we're a few days past, what was it called? When the Three Kings showed up.
Mhm.
There's a name for that. I can't remember what the name is. Usually that's the end of the season, but let's just keep going, man. It's all.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, I remember he told me that the holiday season begins on Halloween and it ends on Super Bowl Sunday. So we're still in that time frame. So we're okay.
All right.
Good.
I'll take that. But Halloween has its own time frame.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, especially for your family. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's when my wife's birthday is on Halloween.
Hmm.
All right. And for years, as long as the kids were home, we were decorating for Halloween. As soon as the oldest left home, that was it. Wendy and I now go out on Halloween.
Good.
Dinner and movies for Halloween.
Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah. It's a regular thing. But yeah, a lot of things going on. And the other thing that hit me between the running lights was Poway City Council.
All right.
So things have evolved over the last few days, and I figured the way this is working out, I'm not going to have a chance to campaign. You're quite familiar. Why don't you give the backup to what's taken place in Poway here?
All right. Well,
you were following the election just like I was.
Oh, yeah.
And we saw two candidates pull an unexpected move in District 4 and District 2.
Right.
Go ahead. I'll let you pick it up there.
Okay. Well, I'll just tell it as best that I understand it. That, yeah, we had our regular cycle of elections, and in District 2, we had 3 candidates, and it was Jared Wilson, who was kind of the hand-picked candidate that was aligned with the establishment, the Voss contingency. There was Vanessa Springett, who was from the Green Valley Civic Association and was a big anti-H candidate. And then there was Tony Blaine, who had started campaigning before the previous election in 2022. You know, he started a cycle earlier than that. And so we weren't sure how that was all going to break. I kind of assumed Jared Wilson would win because usually the candidates that are aligned with the establishment win.
And the money.
And the money. You're right. Yeah. And he's backed by the San Diego, what is it, the Sheriff's Association or the Police Association?
Yeah.
A PAC. And he's been influential on the Budget Review Committee. And I kind of thought he was a cinch. But Tony Blaine, man, he just came in all guns a-blazing and just blew everyone away. I was shocked by that.
Mm-hmm.
And then in District 4, yeah, Kaylin Frank, an incumbent who was under scrutiny when she was first appointed, what was it, 6 years ago or so, maybe 8 years ago, because she had just moved into town and got the appointment.
Back when I first threw my hat in the ring for city council was at that particular point in time.
Oh, well, did you go for the appointment?
I did, until I realized that they were going to make their decision based on district, and me being a District 1 guy.
But that was before districts were a thing, right?
It was becoming a thing at that point. All right. It was going through the transitional phase. And as soon as I heard that they wanted to make this appointee the District 4, I said, I'm in District 1. I'm out.
Right.
I dropped out.
Well,
Caitlin won.
And well, I think it's the whole, South Poway's and has traditionally not been represented on the city council.
Right.
And Kaylin Frank lives south of Poway Road, and that kind of checked the box, for the people doing the appointment. And, she had been, I always liked her personally. She has made some good decisions. There's some decisions I know people in District 4 didn't like that Kaylin had made. But I was concerned with her if she was going to win this time because of all the anger in town about all the development and all the changes in Poway. And Jenny Maeda came in, a newbie, just threw her hat in the ring, and because no one else was running.
Right.
And she won by, what was it, 13 or 14 votes? 12 out of like thousands, right? Wasn't there maybe 4,000 ballots cast?
That's when I started to get into panic mode. As soon as she had a lead of 13 votes, I said, oh, no, it can't end with 13. That's an unlucky number.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
So when it went to 12, I said, that's it.
Okay.
A dozen, cheaper by the dozen.
Good.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that was another shocker that Jenny Maeda won. So there's change happening in Poway. I mean, we've seen the change on the streets with all the development, the construction going on seemingly everywhere. And now changes in the city council where the candidates that are typically most aligned with the establishment are losing. And these kind of, how should I say, challenger candidates are actually winning. And that has rarely ever happened.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you got to remember on a ballot, there's a way of thinking, and Proposition H went, what, 60 something, 60-30, right?
69-31.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was overwhelming.
Damn near 70%.
Right.
All right. I wonder if there's a mental connection when people are voting to go that way. So the Proposition H was so impactful
Hmm.
that affected the other elections. It could have.
Oh, I think there was definitely, because I think there was an underlying kind of anger, unsettlement. There was just an unease.
Yeah.
To varying degrees of people in Poway. And this was the one opportunity, besides voting on a city council candidate, this was the one opportunity where they could say no to the extra development.
Yeah.
And they could change a plan that was being proposed. Yeah, I sensed that. And the more that we got closer to election day, the more I realized that H was likely not going to pass. There was no way.
Mhm.
And then I wondered, to your point, would it affect the other races? And it did.
I think it had an impact.
Because Tony Blaine was also against H, right?
One of the things that I noticed when I did finally run for District 1, and I was up against Dave Groh and two other people that ran alongside me.
Yeah.
All right. I didn't ring doorbells. I hate the political time of the year when they come and ring your door. Everybody wants to talk to you on your doorbell. I just don't. I don't like that. So I'm not going to. And when I decided to campaign all over District 1, the only people I talked to were the people who were in their driveway or in their front yard or doing something. If they were physically in their house, if I couldn't see them, I kept driving.
Right.
And I didn't walk. I was in Calypso.
Oh, yeah.
Calypso and I had a great tour. But the only people I talked to were the people that were out front. And that's when I became aware of a factor I had never even thought about. And that is how different issues in the city of Poway affect people by the neighborhood that they're in.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Okay. Proximity has a lot to do with it. Proximity to one another is a carryover, because neighbors talk over the fence to other neighbors about issues. And if it's important to one, it becomes important to the other. Okay. There's a bleed over effect, similar to the Prop H and two new people running for city council. I think there was a relationship there.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
Based on the fact that neighborhoods, the people within neighborhoods who talk to each other, is very important. It's a value that has to be considered. Okay. So just put that in the back of your mind for a minute, because I'm going to be putting that on the table tonight.
Okay.
All right. Go ahead and finish your discussion about, or did you finish?
Oh, I think I finished. Yeah. I mean, so there's a lot that has changed in Poway.
Yeah.
And then there's been more changes even since the election. I mean, so I don't know, where do you want to go with this? Do you want to talk about District 1? Would you like to talk about some general news? I'd like to get going here.
There's a lot to talk about here.
Yeah, there is.
And I have put my hat in the ring. A lot of people know I've already put my hat in the ring to appoint as a city council District 1.
Okay. All right.
I've done that.
Well, congratulations. That's a big step.
Well, I did that because on top of the news of Tony Blaine winning and Jenny winning, and the type of the races, the way that election went down, there's one other piece of information that crept up. We as a city found out that Pepin had resigned.
Yeah.
Okay. And the reaction was immediately to us finding out that Pepin had resigned was that there was going to have to be an appointment process or a general election. He's got 2 years left.
Yeah.
All right. So my inclination was there's going to be a general election. Got to be. It's too long a period of time to put somebody in place. But what we found out, was no, in the end of November, right, we found out it's going to go by appointment. Damn it. How's this going to work? In that same city council meeting, there was a vote. Tony Blaine, Jenny voted against. Pepin was not there. DeHoff was there, and Voss was there. So it came to 2-2, tie vote. Nothing's happening.
So that was a vote to hold an election. And
No, this was some other issue. I don't remember off the top of my head what it was. I think
but it's clearly it's 2 versus 2.
2 versus 2.
Okay.
And that was like a gunshot. I mean, I heard that. Oh, damn.
That's rare.
We've got a city council that can't do anything because we've got 2 on one side and 2 on the other of issues.
But it's rare that there's ever been a divided city council. I mean, you had a little bit of that with Jim Cunningham.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, the council is 4-1-5-0 almost all the time.
Yeah. So, yeah, they need a 5th person there,
right,
to break this up. Well, Voss is going to go for an appointment,
right,
because he wants to put one of his people in there. Well, who's going to do that? Who's going to? I don't know who it is. I'm not even poking as to who the possible fellow appointees are. But I had said somebody's going to do something.
Mm-hmm.
I got in touch with all the people who had ever showed any interest in city council, and I asked them, "Are you going to run? Are you going to go for it?" No. So at the end of a week, I said, "Somebody's got to do it. I got a week left to file this piece of paperwork." So I said, "I'll go ahead and do it." All right.
Is that back when they were fast tracking it?
Yes.
Okay. So that was early on then.
That was very early.
Yeah.
All right. And it wasn't until after I handed my paperwork in that I found out, oh, this is going to get delayed a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. But still, I was at the time thinking, I can't run a campaign in a week.
Yeah.
Or 10 days.
No.
The only I got the form. It says I live in Poway. All right. I'm in District 1. So those are 2 qualifications met. And now I'm going to have 3 minutes to talk about it.
3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Yeah.
I can't even mention my name in 3 minutes. It takes me that long to
spit
spit that out.
Yeah, of course.
All right. How the hell am I going to get across what needs to happen in the city of Poway in 3 minutes? It can't be done. So I started scrambling, trying to figure out how can I do this. So I made up a PowerPoint presentation. And I said, okay, this covers it, but how do I get this in the hands of them? So I got in touch with the city clerk and says, can I use a PowerPoint during my 3-minute spiel?
Mm-hmm.
And she said, yes, you can do that.
Yeah.
So I put all those gears in motion. But there was a panic there for the better part of a week to 10 days of getting myself ready to be an appointment candidate.
But it's interesting is on one level, they try to make the process appear to be transparent and open. But if that were true, if you were to go through this and let's say there were 5 or 6 candidates and everyone got 3 minutes, the council members that are voting on the appointment aren't going to base their decision on just those 3 minutes because they generally know these candidates that are putting their hat in the ring. They have a sense of who they are and what their character is and what they think about various issues in town. So do you get a sense that maybe that 3 minutes is important, but it's not all on that? I mean, you got to have more than that.
In the purest mind, it has to be.
It has to be. Yeah.
But it isn't. All right. So, plus the fact that they've completely ignored the other possibility is a special election.
Right.
The same meeting. All right. We had this is the second meeting. We had almost 300 people have written a letter to the city clerk saying, go for a special election. And I'm saying, absolutely. All right. We should have a special election. Hiram Soto, special election. He's the one that organized an automated letter to the city clerk.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we're well over 300. I'd like to know where it is now, okay, what the count is now. But this is going to be a thing, that there be a special election for District 1.
Right. But I think the process right now is they're going to appoint someone, and then who knows when the election will be? Probably not until November of 26, right?
That's the way it's looking.
That's the way it's looking.
The first thing I'm going to say in my 3 minutes is we should really have a special election.
Yeah. And you know, I'm on board with a special election. There's been a lot of conversation about this in Poway. But let me just mention to the audience, if you're watching on the live stream, you're welcome to join us in the conversation. If you have any thoughts or comments, let us know.
Yeah, stop calling me on my phone.
Okay, I see Yuri Bolin out here, and he's like, yeah, Deputy Mayor, 2 versus 2. So Yuri follows a lot of the stuff going on here in our local politics. But if you've got a comment or a question, you want to make a statement about whether you think there should be an election or an appointment process for District 1, if you've got some thoughts about, the politics of city council, this is your chance to sound off. So just type it in the live chat on X or on YouTube or on Facebook. There's a lot of different things we've talked about. We've talked about the resignation of Brian Pepin, the timing of that, and how it kind of threw this into an appointment versus an election. There's the topic of whether we should have the election. Then there's you and the ideas that you bring to the table. Before we get to that, I would like to just talk a little bit about Hiram Soto, because he published an op-ed that was excellent.
Fantastic.
And I encourage everyone to go and check it out. And I'll try to put that in the show notes here when I kind of wrap up the podcast afterwards. Hiram Soto, by the way, was the candidate that lost to Brian Pepin in the election 2 years ago. Hiram Soto was a guest on this podcast. He's a good guy, and he's proponent for elections. And it was interesting is there's a similar story happening at the county of supervisor level, where Nora Vargas has stepped down. And then that's a whole other drama and conversation. But they're having a debate within this county board of supervisors. Do they replace her with an election or with an appointment? And then Hiram commented that it's happening in cities all around the county, that there is this trend of making appointments to fill vacant seats rather than an election. And Hiram was making the point that this is violating public trust, that it's not transparent. It looks like those in power are handpicking people that are aligned with their agenda, and it's anti-democratic.
That's my point.
Mm-hmm.
All right. A special election should be our country's based on it. Of the people, for the people, by the people.
Right.
All right. It's almost a religion.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a strong belief structure. Do you mind if I go over my PowerPoint presentation?
No, not at all. Let's do that.
All right.
Okay. Here,
I'm
pull
going
it up
to
here.
present that here. Okay. Let's go to slide 1.
Okay. Let's go with this screen right here. Want to go there?
No, slide 1.
Oh, that's the last one. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go back here to number 1. Okay. Here we go.
There's Poway folks coming in on the globe in the upper left-hand corner. We come into the United States.
Yes.
And then we are stuck in the extreme southwestern corner.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then Poway, that's a county, by the way, San Diego County. Poway is damn near in the center of San Diego County.
It is.
All right. Which has a lot of interest to it. Okay. So that's where I like to get my perspective started, is from this outer view and zooming in on the little city of Poway.
Mm-hmm.
So that little area, let's go to the next slide. I was in District 4 when I first moved to Poway. I rented the property. I was not able to buy a house in those days. Okay, so I rented a piece of property in South Poway, District 4, which has become District 4.
Mm-hmm.
And I got attracted to the city of Poway because it was becoming its own city to have control over its area. So it wouldn't become part of San Diego and just be steamrolled.
Mm.
Okay, there was just way too much construction taking place in those days.
That's when Mira Mesa was going crazy.
Going nuts.
Yeah.
All right.
I remember that.
So when I started to see things in Poway going a certain way, such as the South Poway Industrial Park, and I couldn't miss it because where I was living was on Hill Country Drive. I had a beautiful view of what was going to become the South Poway Industrial Park. So I fought against it because I wanted to protect the views that I had. I'd moved here for the open space, all right? And yet here they were putting an industrial park into it. So then I found out about the bad thing about open space. We lost and the industrial park started to go in. But the concession that we had worked out with everybody was from Poway Road, the main drag through Poway Road, you wouldn't be able to see anything in the industrial park. Everything was going to be built off the hilltops.
See, I've heard this story a number of times.
Okay.
So the question is, how was that promise made? Was it just a flippant remark at a city council meeting, or was it in the legislation?
No, I think it was a flippant remark.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I never dug into it to find out. Okay.
Because it's interesting
because I moved.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
I moved over to Golden Way,
Mm-hmm.
where I had a beautiful hill that was blocking my view of the industrial park, no matter what they did with it. And that was property that I owned. Okay. I finally got up enough scratch to make a down payment on a piece of property. And I bought a fixer-upper. This was a Navy duplex that was built in World War II, and they'd moved it to Poway to become a house on a piece of property.
They moved the whole building?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So my master bedroom was actually the living room of one of the
duplexes.
My living room, the real living room, was the real living room, dining room, and kitchen.
Right.
But our closet for the master bedroom was the old kitchen and dining room, the duplex. Of course, there was a wall that separated the two that busted down, and it was a lot of work. But I had a good time at it. Fighting with city council, being allowed to do what I wanted to do with this duplex house that was on the property. And it was tough. The other thing was I took advantage of the other open space here in Poway, which is where I live now. That was all open space when I first moved here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
All right. There was a nice little pond in the springtime when the rains came. Well,
That was at Star Ridge, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, it was,
because wasn't there like a pond there?
Yeah. But only during the wet time of the year.
Right.
It evaporated and went away. But it was enough for my dog to have a good time in.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But so when they started talking about developing that area, I fought against that too.
Right.
So I'm feeling a little guilty living there for the last 30 years.
Well, you improved it with Candy Cane Courts, right?
Yeah, I'm kind of paying it back.
Yeah, there you go.
But, you evolve. And that's what I wanted to bring up on that
sure
PowerPoint presentation.
Let's bring this back up here.
Was I fought against, I was adversarial in all the city council meetings that I went to. I fought against the South Poway Industrial Park. I fought against the Palisades, this, that, and the other thing I fought about. But in 2018, I ran for city council. Okay. And didn't accept any money. Just, I think it's a couple of $100 that I gave in myself to put the sign on the top of Calypso.
Yeah.
But I toured through most of the streets of what District 1 has become. And I told you about talking to people. And that's when it got driven home to me is how the hell does a city council person speak for all the people in the district when they're all thinking separate things based on where they live?
Right.
Okay. I was changing the way I thought about things at one end of District 4, and I had a completely separate set of thinking for when I was at the east end of District 4, and now I'm in District 1, and I'm just like everybody else. My yays turn to nays, and my nays turn to yays, back and forth, depending on where I am.
Yeah, of course, because the different issues affect you differently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we had one candidate that ran for city council who used to stand out on Poway Road on the way out of town, and he waved to everybody. He got elected. All right. But the only people that saw him were the people that were commuting back and forth. All right. But he got elected. He saw a lot of people. People thought, this guy's impressive. Give him a job so he doesn't have to sit out there on the side of the road waving at us. All right. I remember my wife saying that. I'm voting for him. Why? To get him a job, to get him off the damn street. I can remember things like that. But the thing that got driven home to me in the 2018 run was, how does one guy speak on behalf of an entire district of thousands of people?
Yeah. And the district is so diverse.
Yeah. So let's go to the next slide. Breaking them down, all right, you got to find out where each district's concentration is. What makes that up? Okay. They did a great job of going in to the registrar of voters, plus the topography, plus the developments that had taken place. And they broke it down into the 4 districts. They're done spectacularly. The only errors that I see them making are things that were forced upon them by the registrar of voters, how they divided up the different things. All right. But you can really figure out, I mean, if you look at the vote totals that came in for Proposition P and Proposition H, where's the majority of the voters? Where did that take place?
Well, I mean,
District 2.
Yeah, because that's where the
To
issues were.
some degree, District 3.
Right.
Lesser and lesser the further you get away from the farm.
Okay. Yeah, I buy off on that.
So this is something you have to understand about the composition of the districts themselves. Okay. But then the districts themselves are dependent upon the voters' registration, how they're broken up, precinct and by voting district.
Right.
Okay. Let's go to the next slide. If you examine that and this last election, and I have dug into it, there are 6 sections in District 1 that get represented in the numbers.
Are those precincts?
Precincts.
Okay.
But each of them is divided up.
Oh.
All right. For a total of 21 separate areas.
Oh.
All right. So I'm saying, this is it. This is how this can work. We can break down these regions into smaller and smaller sectors so that we can get a group of people in a neighborhood like Butterwood Court or Candy Cane Courts together speak to one particular aspect because they have that visibility, that sensitivity to particular issues.
Right.
If we can figure out a way to segment that properly and then get representatives, neighborhood spokespersons to speak on behalf of the commuters, the people that don't have the time to bother with Poway politics, the ones that are driving in and out of town, who could care less about what's going on in Poway, except, holy shit, that's a big, tall building. I don't like that. It's too late. The building's up. But if we can get in on the ground floor of what these developments are with a voting public that's educated and centralized, that's what I want to work to.
So this to me is a really revolutionary idea in local government, because usually we elect a representative back in the day they were at large, they could live anywhere in Poway. Now we got district representatives, which I like that concept. But what you're proposing is that the elected council person doesn't necessarily vote for what they want. Instead, you want to listen
to the neighborhoods.
Listen to the neighborhoods and collect data and information and input from them to inform you as a council member on the right way to represent your constituency.
That's my plan.
That's cool. See, no one does that. I mean, officially. I mean, maybe some people do it sort of on the down low, unofficially.
The mechanics don't. I gotta get this off.
Hey, you look good in that hat.
But yeah. Okay. Santa come back after November. But this is an idea that's been kicking around in my head, and with the panic of the current appointment, all right, here's what I'm going to say as a person going for the appointment. The major reason that an election was tossed out the window for speaking sake, for somebody that was talking about it at the moment, well, that's a lot of money. That's cost too much to have a special election. They're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so I'm going to say, as an appointee person, knowing that I get an opportunity to maybe put a good plan in place, all right, you can take some of my salary and pay for the special election with some of that. I'll put what you're going to pay me as a city councilman, put that towards a special election for District 1. All right. Not all of the money, but it's some of it. In exchange for that, I'll act on behalf of the city council person, and I will put into place this concept of neighborhood representation. I got it figured out. I just got to get to work at it. But I can't work at it without an official capacity.
Right.
So as a city council person, maybe I can get the latitude to work with the city manager, to work with the voters registration, and move some lines so things get set up correctly. All right. That's the plan. Let's go to the next slide in the PowerPoint.
Okay. Let's bring that back up here and here.
All right. They submitted a bunch of letters. In the last city council meeting, almost 300 people asked for special elections.
300? How did those 300 people identify themselves? What did they do?
Through an automated process on a website that Hiram Soto set up.
Really?
To generate a letter that would go to the city council saying, we want a special election.
Right on. Yeah, good on Hiram for doing that.
All over. Fantastic for Hiram.
Yeah. That's great.
I'm a little upset with him that he didn't put in for an appointment. All right. But anyway, I'm sure he's thinking about running.
Yeah.
All right.
I expect he would.
And I will support him. So I got curious about all these people that were being listed on the official records now of the city clerk as to who was. And so I don't want you to look too close at these pictures here. All right. Because there's a little one dot for all the people in District 1. I didn't do the ones for District 2 or District 3 or District 4. I just did the
That's a lot of dots in District 1.
It's neighborhood representation.
There it is.
Look at it.
Yeah.
The people who care enough about a special election sent in an automated letter. Took them 2 minutes on a website to send that letter in. That's not a big effort. If we created a website as a part of the city of Poway for everybody in the districts to communicate directly on a do this type of letter or whatever, for whatever issues on the table, the city council then can act on their behalf directly.
Yeah. See, this is part of the innovative idea that you're bringing forward. I mean, all of those dots on that map, every one of them could be people that you would be talking to on a regular basis. They might formally submit their opinion on a website that you created, or maybe they just swap emails with you, but you're getting input from the people. And there you go. There you already got started.
Of the people. Opinions of the people. All right. On whose benefit? City of Poway has a great GIS mapping system that I used to look at District 1. Breaks it down by that particular area. All right. So we can get those people down on a map, all right, and know exactly what the issues are. There's one that's not shown in this presentation that I'd like to pop up.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to bring this up out of my notebook, and it's fuzzy on purpose, folks, because I don't want anybody to get the information on it.
You've done a lot of research for this. This is awesome. This is awesome. Oh, you were showing this to me earlier.
All right. There's an issue right now before going through the city, and they want to put a stop sign on Carriage Road. Carriage Road's a main access for me, by the way.
Right.
Okay. But the people that want to put this stop sign in, look where the flags are. Nobody up here in the other areas of Carriage Road are possibly even aware of this. I didn't become aware of it until 2 days ago.
Yeah. So how did these people say they wanted a stop sign?
By letter.
They wrote a letter to the city council?
Yeah.
Really? So it's public record. That's how you got it. And then you plotted them on a map?
Yeah.
But did they only ask people like in a real tight proximity to that intersection on Carriage Road?
I don't know how they did it, but they did it.
Interesting.
If they had if people had an automatic mechanism to communicate yes, no, maybe on a percentage basis at a neighborhood level, when we already know where they are, all right, we can get issues distributed automatically, and the council person can then determine what those percentages are.
That is really cool. Let me bring up the map again, because this is an innovative idea.
Okay.
Of the people, for the people, by the people.
It breaks down that way.
Right. See, this is something, because you hear this comment from a lot of people on a lot of constituents here in Poway, including you, that say, my city council representative doesn't listen to me. I go to the city council meeting and I get in front of the public comments for 3 minutes, and they don't seem to care. There's a certain degree of that, but keep in mind, my opinion, let's go to the next slide. I think it is. Yeah. How am I going to sort this all out? Well, here's a situation where I'm going to go to the city council and present a vote. I'm going to say yes or no to an issue that's before the city council. But I've got this tool now that tells me on a percentage basis of what the people's interest is. All right. So on the extreme left there, if 70% of the people are in favor of this thing, I'm probably going to say yes. Yeah.
But there's 20 people that said no.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Nobody's speaking for them. It appears that nobody's speaking for them. It's my responsibility as city council person to say, hey, you're part of the 20 percentile. All right. 70% of the people want this. All right. Unfortunately, I've got to go with yes, because I got to satisfy the majority of the people.
But you could at least explain that in your vote. And then
Absolutely.
And then the people that maybe are in the 20% will at least they'll be acknowledged. Correct. And respected, and they'll be listened to.
Right. Now let's go to the middle decision. I got 50% says yes. Okay. And what did I say there? 20% said no. Same 20% says no. But not 70% won yes, only 50%. I'm just there on the hairy ass threshold.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So maybe I've got to talk to those people, the yeses and the nos, to find out what there is about that. Is there something we could change? All right. About that particular issue. And yeah, maybe it doesn't go through, whatever, but I can cast my vote, yes or no, if this was to take place. All right. So the contractor goes back and says, oh shit, I got to get 6 more parking spots for this particular house I want to build.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what he's going to do. All right. He's got to go to a 3-car garage instead of a 1-car garage. All right. But he's got the word. People can make progress, and the population, the neighbors who are going to have to put up with that issue in their area, they had a say in it directly.
So again, this to me is cool, but I want to ask you just a couple of hypotheticals.
Okay.
So let's say, for
You
example,
didn't let me cover the no vote.
oh, pardon me. Yeah, go for it.
30% of the people say yes.
Yeah.
All right. 40% of the people said no. Neither one of them over 50. I'm going to say no, because the larger number, 40% said no.
Okay.
That's how I break it down.
I understand. Okay.
All right.
So this again is also very innovative in terms of usually candidates are elected, or maybe in your case appointed, because of what their agenda is. And then typically when they vote, when they get on council and they make votes, they typically follow their agenda that they campaigned on. Now, you're saying is that you don't have an agenda other than listening to the people and representing their agenda.
Correct.
Interesting.
But what I also bring with me is 4 years of thinking about how I get neighborhood representation to work.
Mm.
All right. So if I'm appointed, I'll have maybe a month or two in the least amount to put this into place. That's long enough to talk. That's what I do for a profession is I talk to programmers.
Mm-hmm.
Make the website do this. Make the website do that. I can lay that all out. That's what I do for a living. Okay. I'm constantly talking to programmers on how to do stuff. I got it all in my head and I get it all written down. So that's what I bring to the table now is I just need the opportunity to sit down and do that. Now, if it takes me 2 years, it takes me 2 years.
Well, this is part of the idea that you bring to the table. I think it's refreshing. It's innovative. You're listening to the people, you're representing their wishes, and you're proactively hunting them out to get their input.
Right.
Okay, but let's just say that a particular issue, the people said, okay, 60% yes, 40% no, but you personally have a real problem with it. And it like violates your moral code. But the people, 60% yes, you would still vote with the people's way.
That's exactly what I would say. And I want to impress that upon you. I'm the son of an Episcopalian minister. Okay. This story goes way back. My dad lost his position as a clergyman for a church because of church and state.
Mm.
He was running a school, tutoring school in the church at night to help the kids that needed help in school learn things. He had tutors and stuff. And the bishop said, no, you can't do that. That's mixing church and state. He says, but my kids, my parish kids are falling down on the curve because other places are. I got to compete with them. I've got to get my kids trained. He lost his position.
Oh.
All right. We had a thing called an every member canvas where they came around and asked people how much they give to the church. Well, guess what? They came to my house. My dad's sitting there in the living room. That was a little embarrassing for them, but they asked me, he says, well, Peter, he says, you're going to continue going to St. Luke's? And I said, yeah. And they said, okay. We understand that you're now working for Mackenzie Walton Dimensional Tube. And I said, yeah, as a part-time job after school, I'm working for this tubing company. Well, then you should be making this amount, so you should give this amount to the church. I said, no. I says, I give to the church what I feel the church needs. It's my donation to the church.
Hmm.
They said, well, yeah, that's the way your dad set it up, but we're changing it. So we're going to do it on a percentage of income.
Oh, like tithing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I'm sorry that you're doing that. And they said, well, we're going to put you down for this much. I says, I ain't going.
It sounds like a tax.
It's the last time I went to church in my life.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. So I will say at the city council meeting in this situation, 60% of the people want yes, 20% want no. I'm voting yes on behalf of my neighbors. It's not my vote.
Would there ever be a situation where you would have to break a tie, or like it was 51-49? Would you make a judgment call?
That middle situation
Mhm.
is where I say I get up and I talk a lot.
Okay.
That there's got to be an extenuating situation here. We've got to change something to get the numbers to work right. All right. So that I can say yes. Otherwise, I'm voting no. If I can't get it so the majority wins, the larger number of people win, then it's a no vote.
Okay.
That's
again, this is spectacular. I mean, nobody does this. And I think the voters would be thrilled to see that there was a council member that was actually hunting them down to get their input.
Let's go to the next slide. I'm totally dependent on how these places break down. All right. I got some repair work to do also. Look in the lower right corner there. That's District 1 on the north side. You see the red lines?
Yeah.
Those are precinct boundary lines, voter precinct boundary lines.
Okay.
Goes down the middle of the street.
Okay.
That means that the guy on the other side of the street from you will not be voting through the same system, precinct, whatever, that you will. Maybe your best friend. I don't know. You get along with your neighbor across the street? But my concept here is one of the things I want to do is just shift the lines over so they do not break up neighborhoods. All right. Keep the neighborhoods intact. So it means several trips to the registrar of voters. Can we move this line right over here? We may have to merge some areas together, but that's one of the things that'll have to take place in order for this to make sense. Fortunately, District 1 is really easy. There's an area here in Poway, you used to live down there, where Garden Road is divided up between Districts 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Down the middle of the streets of the neighborhood.
Right.
All right. That's got to be fixed. Now, did the city of Poway do a bad job when they put in Districts 2, 3, and 4? They did the best they could. They were following the voter registration lines. It's the voter registration lines that are screwed up.
Yeah, the precincts. Yeah.
All right. I mean, that little area where you had your house on the very end, totally separate.
Yeah, because we used to live in Sycamore Creek, and the older part of Garden Road community, we all, regardless if we lived in Sycamore Creek or the older Garden Road community, we all had the same issues, with traffic and everything else in that community. So it made sense that all should be one district.
Should be.
So there's a single council member that can represent everybody.
Correct.
But yeah, that's split in pieces. I remember, what was it? Bernie was the one that highlighted that to us a long time ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but it's interesting, when they drew the lines originally, it seemed like they were trying to make sure that the number of voters was roughly the same, and the demographic profile, like age, ethnicity, income, etc., were roughly the same.
They did a very, very good job. I mean, it's an absolutely spectacular job.
Just needs a little fine tuning.
Needs some fine tuning.
Yeah.
Now, here's a situation where I'm going for an appointment to District 1, which is a temporary, hopefully a temporary issue. I might as well make that announcement too. If I'm appointed, okay, I am going to carry out the office of City Council by listening to the neighborhoods of District 1 and speaking on their behalf at City Council meetings. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work on getting neighborhood representation worked out. Whether I'm allowed to do that for 1 month or 2 months, this is a task that I want to see done. District 1 happens to be, coincidentally, the easiest one to work out towards neighborhood representation. District 2, a little tougher. District 3, oh, very hard.
Mm-hmm.
And District 4, yeah, it's going to need some work.
There's a lot of changing going on in
But
District
I'll
4.
be glad to work with whoever wishes to in those districts to get what I do for District 1 to work in District 2, 3, and 4. So the city of Poway can work exactly the same.
Okay. Now, devil's advocate. Okay.
Mhm.
One of the objections that some people have to the notion of who draws the lines is that politicians end up choosing their voters rather than voters choosing their politician. What's your take on that?
I'm a Jeffersonian Republican.
Okay.
That answers that question.
How so?
Party doesn't exist.
No. This has nothing to do with party. No, but it's just that usually when elected representatives are drawing the lines, often they are drawing the lines to benefit themselves, to make it easier for them to be reelected.
I'm not going to be reelected. I'm not going to run for.
There you go. Okay, that's the answer to that question then.
Yeah, I think I already mentioned that I'm not.
Yeah, you're right.
to-
You're right. You're right.
At the end of when I get replaced by the winning candidate of an election, be it normal or special, I'm done.
So you're like a temporary placeholder
That's
until
it.
the people can speak.
Until the people can speak.
Right.
That's the way I'm looking at it. Let's
Right
go to
on.
the next slide.
Okay. Let's bring that one up next. Here we go.
Next slide. This one's really easy. This is the entrance to Poway, District 1, north side of Poway Road. That's that square.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go to the next slide. There it is. There's my neighborhood of the bottom part of that section represented by neighbors. Let's find people that can act and speak for their neighborhoods. They're already there in the books. You can see them. They write letters into the city council. All we have to do is get them identified.
Right.
And once they're identified, we give them the code number so they can access the website and put in how their neighborhood feels about each and every issue that hits them in the face.
This is like birds of a feather flock together.
Exactly.
Right. So where is that? Where we see on the map, is that dark line Poway Road?
At the bottom.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
That's the separation between District 1 and District 4.
Okay.
The pink area over there on the right-hand side,
Yeah.
that's the shopping center. Nobody's living there. It's all, this is all what I'm saying. This is what's great about the City of Poway's GIS mapping programs. They've got this all laid out. They show you where the houses are. They show you where the businesses are. They show you what the residential ratings are.
Right on.
All right. I know all this by looking at a map. I can figure out where to drop the line, where are the apartment complexes.
So this is cool. I mean, this is like a council member that not only is representing the people, but doing the due diligence and the hard work to dig up the data and figure everything out and do a deep dive in every little nook and cranny of the district.
What if they put something on the table that only affects people in apartment buildings? How is the city going to approach those people? This will be a system where they can do that.
Yeah, like for like water rates or something like that, it would affect apartment people different than, you know, people that own a single family home.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Interesting.
Anyway, that's what I want to put on the table. How are we doing? Anybody asking any questions?
We do have questions, so let's do that. There's a couple of comments here.
Finish off this presentation. Let's go to the last slide.
Okay, one more slide. There it is.
There's where we are, folks. We've got right now, the map on the left shows District 1 broken down by voter district, all 21 of them. It says 22 because it's off the spreadsheet, but there's 21 separate little voting districts that are going to be massaged out. And
So-
I'll take that task on.
So each of those are subsets of precincts.
Correct.
Interesting. These little,
Those 21 fit into the 6. that get reported on
the 6 precincts.
correct.
See, this is news to me because I didn't realize that precincts were officially broken into smaller chunks.
Yeah.
But they are.
They are.
So it might just be like moving a few puzzle pieces around and you can get the lines where you want them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Go back to the full camera again. I did a lousy job of this. I'm really sorry, but I couldn't help it.
Pete, you've done so much. I mean, this is awesome. This
All right.
is really
I'm going to show you. Everybody in the audience, tough.
It's a little bit. Be careful of the reflection on the.
Yeah. Well, okay. Remember I said that street in the Palisades that goes.
See if you can get a little closer to the camera. That's going to be hard for people
I
to
don't
see.
want people to see.
Oh. Pardon me. Okay.
You see this little street right here?
Yeah.
That's a boundary line, goes right down the middle of the street.
Oh.
All right.
Is that the main road that goes around the Palisades?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
All right. This one doesn't. It's got a green line to the east of the homes, and it's got a green line to the west of the homes.
Yeah. So the green lines are in the canyons.
So this is a misplaced line. So what I'm saying is eliminate that line, take that out, use the green one over here. Now you've got all these people voting together.
There you go. There you go. Yeah.
It's not rocket science.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I want to put on the table. Let's go see what the questions are.
Okay. Here we'll get some folks here involved. I know Mike Devine usually floods the comments here, but we'll get him involved as well. So
pick one at random.
Okay, we'll pick this one here. Mike said, Pete fought against the business park, his own neighborhood, and other things, but the owners won and got to do what they wanted, just like Rexford's neighbors.
All right, I'm going to give him 50-50 on that. You got 50% on that, Mike. You're absolutely right. How do I say this properly? Okay, I fought against the business park, but we got the compromise that from Poway Road, you cannot see any businesses in the business park while they built the main portions of it. That was the compromise that I fought for, and I caved in. Now, did I particularly care for that? No. Did I stay on Hill Country Drive? No. I moved.
Okay.
All right. Because I didn't particularly care for that. Well, there's a bunch of other reasons as well. The house became available for me to buy, and I went and bought the house.
Yeah.
All right. The owners won and got what they wanted to do. No. The only person that got what they wanted to do was the new structure that they put in at the end.
Oh, Amazon?
Amazon.
Well, Amazon's clearly visible from Poway Road.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially if you live in the Garden Road community.
Especially from Garden Road.
So that violated this anecdotal flippant comment that was made at a city council.
Which obviously wasn't written. The original thing that we fought and won.
Yeah.
Where they said you won't be able to see any of the houses from Poway Road or any of the businesses from Poway Road. We won that. So it was obviously not written. Otherwise, Amazon wouldn't have been able to do it.
But you know what's interesting is in your neighborhood at Star Ridge, you know, they've temporarily had the girls playing softball there, right? Because of the construction at Lake Poway with the water infrastructure. And I remember Chris Cruz showed us a letter that was written by, I think, a city council member, or was it a member of the city employees, that said, we will never have organized sports in Star Ridge. And it was signed, but it wasn't like law. It was just like a kind of a promise based on my word.
Right. So apparently we got to do things a little bit stronger than that.
Yeah, because I think maybe back in the day, Poway was much more of a, you know, it was a country town. Everyone knew each other. It's
so
a little different now.
That brings up something else. Nick Carruthers has put on some couple of spiels now, and that is that we should reformulate the city planning. Go back to the way the city planning was. And there's some outlying things from that, and I'm in favor of that, by the way. I think we should go back to the way the city planning figuring out how things are done, the protocols of which Chris Cruz calls them 3 things. Those 3 things I'm in favor of doing.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We should get back to the way it was. So things are in writing and things are promised.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're gonna have any sort of an agreement with the people, it has to be binding.
Yeah.
Because, and especially when city council members, they resign and someone steps in, takes over, they're not going to honor someone else's handshake.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. Yeah.
Let's go back to what Mike had to say. Other than that, I think I answered him.
I think you did. Yeah. So, he was saying that the owners won and got to do what they wanted, but in your opinion, I think it was some form of a compromise that was made.
There was a compromise made.
But generally speaking,
I remember it distinctly. Yeah.
But generally speaking, the owners got almost everything they wanted.
Correct.
They just had to concede on a few things.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, the other thing, I worked up there.
Okay.
I was one of the, I paid rent. I was one of the occupants. So I'm one of the people that benefited by winning that battle. All right. Because I was only a couple of miles from home. I didn't have the commute into Kearney Mesa anymore. Okay. I'm just a couple of miles away from work. But if I walked out of the building I was in, which was a 3-story building, I had to go up the top of a hill to see my house. All right. If I wanted to go get a picture of where my house was from the industrial park in a 3-story structure, I had to climb a hill.
Right.
Fortunately, there's a footpath, so it wasn't that hard to do.
But that was probably when they originally started the construction.
The original buildings. Yeah.
But that business park has expanded and gotten closer and closer to the ridgeline, right?
Yeah, I ran into an interesting situation. A friend of mine, they put in new lights in their parking lot up there in the industrial park. And he complained to a city council person. And the next thing he knows, they were up there and they were re-aiming the parking lot lights so they would not shine, and they don't. You can go in his backyard now. I mean, those are the things that city councilmen should be doing.
Right.
Okay. Little nuanced things like that.
Right.
Okay. What else does Mike get to say?
Okay.
Anybody else?
Okay. There's a number of things here. Let's go here to Matt. Mike's got a bunch of them. I'll come back to some of them, Mike. Matt said, Pete's investigation and research really impressive, no matter if you agree with him or not.
Oh, thank you, Matt. Appreciate that. Yeah.
That's my take as well. I think the idea of the representation, I like that. I would probably have a little more leeway for me, as if assuming I were in your position, to have a little bit more of a leeway to make my own judgment. But I can't disagree with you the way you've laid it out. You're going to listen to the people and you're going to represent their wishes
as best I can,
as best you can. And it's going to be a sort of an imperfect science, but it'll be something.
Right.
Something
better than what we got.
Right. You ain't got nothing right now other than just, people talking amongst themselves.
Right.
Right. Okay. And here's Yuri. Yuri makes a comment. Things unfortunately changed in 2018. It was the Carriage Mall and the bowling alley. But the owner of the bowling alley, who was my friend, taught me about property rights.
Yep. We miss our bowling alley. That's all I can say about it.
Yeah. But the bowling alley that was owned, he was a Poway property owner, right?
Yep.
I don't know if he also happened to live in Poway. Maybe he did. And he decided to sell it.
That's happening more and more.
Right.
There's a lot of inherited property that is going up for sale. It's not the original owners. It's the children of the original owners.
Well, I think that's what happened in this case with the bowling alley, right? Because maybe the kids inherited it and they wanted to monetize their investment because they didn't want to run a bowling alley.
Right.
Or they didn't want to have 4 kids or whatever it was and have to split it amongst themselves.
Right. There's a thing people ought to look into. It's an interesting thing that you can do with inheritance. My dad did it with me. There's a portion of the inherited money that is a generation skipping trust. All right. Means the money that my dad put aside into this generation skipping trust I don't get any benefit from it.
Mm-hmm.
It passes me by. It
Okay.
goes directly to my kids.
Okay. Wow. I never heard of such a thing.
Yeah, it's very cleverly done, and it's meant to do that.
Right.
All right. It's a bank controlled thing.
Yeah.
It's not a personal thing where my dad gives me the bowling alley. I don't want a bowling alley. I'm selling the damn thing. All right. Which is what somebody would probably do. They want to get their money out of what their parents left them. It's real estate. It's not a dollar amount. And shit like that happens.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it does.
Happens all the time.
All the time. But I think Yuri brings up a good point. I mean, and this has been the classic battle of what's going on in Poway, is that there are people that believe in property rights, which means if it's your land, you should be able to sell it. Or if it's your land, you should be able to put an apartment building on it or a bowling alley on it or a strip mall on it because it's your land. That's property rights. But then there's the other side of it where people are concerned about zoning and telling people what they can and cannot put on their own property. And that is kind of the conflict we have, where Prop H with the Lifetime Fitness, the people had the ability to vote on that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, because it was in the Prop FF
Down
territory.
on Poway Road, we don't.
But on Poway Road isn't part of Prop FF. Then the city council makes the judgment call, not the people. And you'll often hear city council members say, property rights, as long as they conform to the law, who am I to say the bowling alley guy can't sell his bowling alley and have someone else put something else there?
Yep.
So this is the conflict in town. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's going to go on for as long as.
Yeah. Well, it's just going on everywhere in California, really everywhere in America. It's a big deal because of the housing crisis. Let's keep moving.
But the people have got to be heard.
No doubt about that.
Yep.
The people need to be heard, not only in your process of representation in the neighborhoods and the nooks and crannies of the district, but the people need to be heard in terms of an election to replace Brian Pepin in District 1.
Yes.
So
if I haven't mentioned that, by the way, at every possible move, I'm going to be requesting a special election for Brian Pepin's position. I don't want to be there. I don't even really want to be on the city council. I just want to see this take place. And this is an avenue for me to do that. If appointed, I'm going to put this in place.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, let's get a special election, get somebody else in there. Period.
I could just see you up on the council every meeting. I propose to have an election in District 1 and this is new business and it may get voted up or down. And if it keeps getting voted down to have an election, you're going to submit it again.
Yeah.
You're just gonna be like kind of like a nice little poke.
All the time.
Yeah. Until they have an election or until November of 26 rolls around.
I know how to do things repeatedly. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
I rode submarines. It was the same damn thing, day in and day out. Nothing ever changed.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I can do things repeatedly.
Right. You're persistent and disciplined and principled.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Let's keep moving here. We got some more comments. Let's pick up another one here from
Mike dropped off the line. What up?
No, Mike's in here. There's another one here from Mike has got like a ton of them in here. Mike says, why would Poway want a council that would not allow Powegians to build what they want on their own property?
I have no problem with that. I think people should be able to build what they want on their own property, providing they comply with some well-written zoning law requirements.
Hmm.
I did.
Mm-hmm. Well, you have to. It's the law.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can remember distinctly that, Mike, let me take you offline on that. And I'm going to talk to you about the details of my move out of Golden Way. I'm not going to tie up a podcast for that. But.
Here's a question for you. Why does Prop FF not apply to the entire city of Poway?
Because primarily from my impression, primarily because of zoning.
Right. I mean, obviously the gist of Prop FF back in the late 80s was they wanted to not turn Poway into Mira Mesa.
Correct.
They wanted to preserve the city and the country, bigger lots, trails, horses, the city and the country.
Right.
But why did they not apply that to District 4, Poway Road? Or did they want to have some flexibility?
Because it was already established. I ran into that on my 1 acre piece of property. All right. Yeah, on Golden Way, I moved into a 1 acre lot of one, even though it was a duplex, it had been zoned for that 2 dwelling units, but the person before me had already converted into one, which is why I ended up with a master bedroom that was actually a living room. That's a little distracting.
Yeah, a little.
Okay, because the light switches were on the opposite side of the room. There was no light switch on the wall when you walked into the master bedroom. You had to walk across the room to the main entrance,
right,
to turn the lights on. I mean, there was all kinds of stupid stuff like that.
Wait, did you have a duplex in both locations?
No.
Okay, just the Golden Way.
Just the Golden Way
location.
But Mike, to bring up your point, yeah, it was not until we sold the place that it got put into a mode, because I was commercially influenced residential property. Okay. So the property that I had on Golden Way is now a part of the commercial property. Okay.
So it's been rezoned as commercial only?
It's a part of the commercial lots. Yes.
Okay.
All right. So that's just the way it was worked out.
Right.
All right. And part of the reason why I had a problem selling the house, all right, at the time, was because of this 8-foot wall between me and the commercial space. It was just there. So sold it as commercially influenced, changed the zoning. We worked with the city of Poway, got it changed commercially influenced. Then Fayborg took it.
Then you could sell it
And
to
he
a
made
commercial.
Yes, but he took the house down, put a workshop in there.
Right.
But it was not the mechanical body shop with compressors running and spray cans and all that other stuff. It was just a mechanic space. So the quiet was there.
Right.
All right. But yeah.
See, it gets tricky. All these zoning stuff is tricky.
Yeah.
And I get why it exists, because people don't want to be living next door to some big commercial operation that's going to be disruptive.
You talk about the 3-story, 4-story structures on Poway Road. Poor Jimmy Fayborg built a brand new, gorgeous body shop when I was there. All right. Ground floor, introduction, people come in, get their cars worked on, talk to the secretaries and stuff. Second floor was an office space. They wanted him to look Powayian. So he was doing the architecture, but in order to do that, he wasn't going to be able to get the second floor put in. It was some real, I don't remember all the details, but he fought like hell with city council for the better part of a year so he could get his building the way he wanted it. First floor, worker B level. Second floor, office and management of the business. Third floor, rooftop.
Right. It looks like a barn, if I remember.
Yeah, looks great.
It's a good looking building.
Doesn't look like a body shop.
No, it doesn't. Not at all. No.
All right.
So why was the city resisting it? He was going to give it. And it is
because we had a thing in the laws at that point in time that was only 2 stories, including the roof.
Oh.
Which precluded, if he built a roof, he couldn't have the office space the way he wanted it. So, Mike, you're absolutely right. They should build what you want on your property, 100% behind you, as long as you comply with the rules.
But this is an interesting debate, because we can debate whether the rules should exist in the first place, but that's a whole other rabbit hole. But the rules do exist, but then the Poway City Council will make exceptions to the rule, like what they did with the new Ford dealership, Because wasn't there like a 35-foot limit for the longest time? And then when they built the new, it's not Perry Ford, it's another name now.
Yeah.
But that structure had a facade that went up much higher.
Yeah.
So
it's the same thing that Fayborg faced.
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And yet now we've got a city council that put a 4-story structure on Poway Road.
Yeah. But but their argument is it's only 3 because the first is sunken. It's 4 stories though. I mean, if you're on the back side of that in that residential community, it's definitely 4 stories.
I can't see the hills anymore. Never mind the businesses in the industrial park. I can't even see the hills the business park is on.
Things change. Things change. Let's keep going here. Yuri had a little bit of a follow-up here on the bowling alley, and he said the owner was older and his wife was going through some challenges. Told me just before the election in 2018 he was waiting for the right price, and I respected his decision.
He's the owner.
He's the owner. Yeah. But see, it's interesting that the owner in that bowling alley location was able to sell to a property developer to build an apartment building. But the owner of the land in the farm is not allowed to develop a fitness center there. So the rules are inconsistent. That's why I always wondered why Prop FF didn't cover the whole city.
Well, the other thing is the access road to the farm is nowhere close to Poway Road.
Oh, yeah.
I'm amazed they call that a 2-lane road. It's narrow. And they were going to put a building the size of the Lifetime.
Oh, yeah.
Up there.
Yeah.
On that road.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of objection to it.
You put the Lifetime Fitness Center on a 4-lane road like they do in every other state. We're the only ones that they're sticking it out in the sticks. I drove it.
Yeah. But it's still an inconsistent rule, right? We can debate whether it should be there or not.
Yeah.
But certain parts of Poway, the people have to vote. Yep. In other parts of Poway, the city council makes the decision. And I think that's weird.
Well, it depends on whether the Prop FF clause was there or not.
That's what I always wondered, why they didn't do it for the whole city.
Next
question. Here's a comment here from Mike. He says, Pepin was like Biden. He only ran to keep Hiram out. Well, let's talk about Brian Pepin and the resignation. I mean, when that went down, that was a big piece of news, you know?
That shocked the hell out of me.
Because when he announced his candidacy in 2020, he was Mr. Family Guy, you know, Poway guy. And then suddenly he's in office for 2 years and he hits the eject button after half a term. I was shocked when I heard that news.
I did a slight favor for Hiram Soto back when he ran against Brian Pepin. I took a ride in Calypso handing out stuff to neighbors like I did when I ran on my Calypso thing.
Mm-hmm.
Should have seen the glares I got going through Pepin's neighborhood.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell me more.
That's just all I'm going to say.
Okay.
Yeah. He was not too appreciative that Mr. Soto was cruising through his neighborhood.
But
it wasn't Soto, it was me.
Yeah, but still, it's part of the district where you campaign.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you know, Biden not showing up in Florida to campaign because Trump lives there, you know? And then
funny you should say that.
It is funny.
Because he dropped out and gave it over to Harris before his scheduled trip to Florida. But that's okay.
Yeah. Concentric coils. Yeah. Okay. Let's go back here, get some more comments. And this is another one from Yuri. He says, Prop FF in 1988 was tailored to the benefit of North Poway. To be fair, it should either be abolished or include portions of South Poway. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Take a look at that, Yuri. Find out if it doesn't also benefit the properties of the homeowners running up the valleys by Poway grade. And on the east side, I think, no, all our land's terminated now by San Diego Development. So we probably lost that as well. But I thought the Prop FF was 3/4 of the way around Poway.
So it was something like that.
Yeah.
Because it was the Poway Road area because it was a lot of commercial,
Yeah.
but it was also south of Poway Road.
South of Poway Road. Yeah.
But then other parts of south of Poway Road, I think like the Matade Hills. Is that the right name? Or the Meadows, the Matade Meadows? I think those are included in Prop FF, aren't they?
I'm not sure. I don't.
It's confusing.
Yeah.
You know, so and that's why I agree here with you.
Got to talk to the neighbors.
Yeah, exactly. But you remember John Mullen, who was on city
yeah.
council? He used to always say that the Poway Road area was the city part of the city in the country. And therefore, that's why he didn't think it needed to be Prop FF'd.
And I understand that thinking.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Poway Road has always been that to me. It's always been, well, back when I lived on Golden Way, that was the racetrack to and from work. You know,
Yeah.
boom, boom.
It's not a racetrack anymore.
Yeah. People discuss that too.
Yeah. Okay. Let's, and then Yuri goes on to say that way Sacramento can equally upset all residents. You know, Yuri comments on Sacramento a lot, and there's a lot of disagreement in the city amongst the people of the city, because some people like on the city council will say, Sacramento is trying to tell us what to do. But then other people say Sacramento really isn't doing that. I mean, what's your take?
My take is Sacramento, Yuri's absolutely right. I think there's a lot, too much instruction coming down from the state level. I wish they'd leave us alone. All right. Let us be the Poway city in the country. The reason we became a city in the first place, but they found their way around that now.
Yeah, well,
and they're getting their fingernails into us again.
See, again, this is the classic battle, you know, so it's interesting because for the longest time, neighbors, people in communities were able to keep development at arm's length. You know, they'd say, you know, we don't want anything here, just keep it the same. But now we have this housing crisis that is made housing crazy expensive. There's homelessness. There's a lot of problems. Now the Sacramento politicians, most of which are Democrats, surprisingly, are now saying we need to relax some of these zoning laws so more homes can be built. And don't some of these cities have quotas on the number of homes they have to build or the number of affordable homes they have to be built?
Yeah, I don't think we've flat ass run out of real estate.
In Poway?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's very little open dirt.
Yeah.
And there's a few nooks and crannies, but they don't have to go vertical rather than horizontal if they're going to be adding a lot more units.
And I don't think we could do that because we don't have soil stable enough. Right. The one saving grace is that Poway's dirt moves. I don't care where you are. Okay. Poway's dirt moves. You put a structure on it. You got to be, just brought this up with Mike Devine on another topic, is it's unstable. It's moving. Things will move.
Well, when they like take that new Fairfield, that 4-story apartment building on Poway Road, well, they first filled in the hole and raised the level. In fact, they did a lot of that at the farm as well. Yeah. They build these plateaus, and then for the Fairfield project, they put 4 stories on top of.
We'll see if it works.
This plateau. So if you're saying things move, we could have like a leaning tower of Pisa.
We could.
You know, have you seen they did that? There's like a building in downtown San Francisco that's tipping for the same reason.
Yeah.
The ground moves.
Yeah. Well, you ever been to Pisa?
No.
Leaning Tower of Pisa.
Yeah.
It's tipping.
Yeah.
So we will see. I'm not an engineer. Mike Devine's the engineer. All right. But all I know is that the soil in Poway is extremely unstable.
Well, I'll give you credit where credit's due. You called out the Outpost project before they started.
Anybody with a will would have seen that.
And you said if they dig down to a 2-story deep underground parking lot, they will hit water. You said that in one of our podcast episodes a long time ago.
As I said, anybody with a well in Poway in those days, I had water 10 feet down.
Yeah.
I didn't need to dig. It was right there staring me in the face. So,
because that's because of the creek and everything else that's going through there, right?
Where do you think the creek passes by that place?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. It's right there.
It's right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, real estate moves in Poway. So
it does.
We'll see what happens.
Okay.
Keep Mike employed. He's a good engineer.
Yuri says portions of Matade will have homes in the next 5 years.
portions of Matadi. Yuri, let's take that offline.
This is a sensitive topic for the people that live in that community.
Yeah.
And the way that property is zoned. I remember the story is that Brian Pepin was representing a developer that wanted to rezone that Matade Meadows area to build housing. And then there was an uproar in the community, and then that eventually faded away.
Yeah. Yuri, let me tell you about my experience on Hill Country Drive. Hill Country Drive is facing the same way that Matadi is. Okay. So I have a similar experience that I can relay to you why they would have issues on that particular move. Go ahead. Next.
Okay, next. What else? I think there's only like one more here, and it's from Mike, but he's already made this point earlier. I'll put it up there. Oh boy, all my neighbors get to decide what I get to do at my house. What a great system. So, he's objecting to the zoning issues, which I understand his point as well. But this is good. I mean, we're getting people in the community that have something to say and create a little bit of a community forum here. And that's what makes this podcast kind of fun. Now, we've talked about your candidacy as an appointee for District 1 in Poway. We've discussed, let me bring up this slide here. We've discussed the resignation of Brian Pepin and how that opened up this opportunity. We've talked about the election versus the appointment, and you're firmly in the I want an election camp.
Yes.
Right.
But I got my finger in the dike. I got my finger in the appointment process just in case it doesn't.
Right. Because you could be that placeholder for 2 years, maybe less, if they have a special election.
Correct.
What would be the soonest they could have a special election, do you think?
I think they could probably pull it off in 6 to 8 weeks, from what I've heard.
Yeah. It wouldn't, I mean, and it's just a special election in District 1.
Right.
So we're only talking about what, like, I don't know, 4,000 ballots, something like that, maybe 5,000, 10,000. I mean, it's not.
Yeah, no, the voting. See, that's the other problem. We are such a city of commuters.
Right.
All right. There's like 7,000, I think, registered voters.
In District 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
But only about 3 or 4 of them vote.
Right. And in a special election, it'd be even less than that.
It'd be even less than that.
Now, in one of the Poway City Council meetings, Mayor Voss immediately shot down the idea of an election to replace Brian Pepin. And he used the language, I'm going to paraphrase, but it was, a mail-in election is a non-starter.
I don't know why.
But my sense is that, there are a lot of people, particularly our friends in the Republican Party, that are suspicious of mail-in balloting, and they don't want mail-in balloting. But I wondered if Mayor Voss was objecting on that basis, that he didn't want a mail-in vote, or he didn't want to vote at all.
Well, I don't think he wants a vote at all, is
Right.
my gut feel. That's my gut feel.
And it's interesting because the circumstances of how Mayor Voss got onto the Poway City Council was due to to having Betty Rexford was removed from office. There was a special election. Voss said he wasn't going to run for the special election, ended up doing it anyways, and lost. I think John Mullen won that. Chris Cruz corrected me on that, and she got the history right. And then Voss later ran in an election and won. But it's interesting how, again, it's like there's this inconsistency.
See, all of those statements begin with the guy running for office. I like to flip that around. The people need a chance to vote for themselves, for their choice. A city councilman should not be the choice of the mayor or any fellow city council person.
Well, I mean, you're so big on the representation of the people, listening to the people. But imagine if the city council does make an appointment, you would have representatives, none of which live in District 1, would make the decision for District 1.
It's ludicrous. It's ludicrous.
Yeah.
I don't comply with the business style. I mean, yeah, that came up over candy cane courts. People wanted to know, well, you grow that just for Christmas time? I said, no. As soon as I didn't have to report to corporate America and predefined appearances
Yeah.
for business, that's when it goes to hell in a handbasket.
No, see, I like it because you're doing it your way.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's fantastic.
Well, in the Navy, they told me
Oh, well,
how to
yeah.
cut my hair.
But when I
did
first
90
met you in 2018, when you were running, your hair was a lot shorter, but you were probably more in corporate America back then.
I was in corporate America.
Yeah. But you still had a ponytail, if I remember.
It was long in the back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But right now, man, you're authentic Pete Neild.
I'm trying to be.
That's good.
I'm trying to be.
And you're telling people what you're going to do if you are selected as the appointed representative.
Yeah.
And you won't run for re-election.
I will not run for re-election.
And you'll sign a pledge or whatever is necessary.
Do whatever they want.
Right.
To that end.
Right.
But I need to get authorized access to go talk to the registrar of voters about, can we make this line go over here?
Okay.
What's it going to take to do that? Okay. And the second thing is that I have powers to work with the people that do the website for the city of Poway, so I can create some web pages for communication between the people and the city council persons.
Right.
That's protected.
Yeah, it's secure.
Yeah.
And private. Right.
Yeah. We can get that communication system set up that way. I'm a happy camper.
Yeah, but I think in the meantime, you could still do it with email and your own due diligence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which would be light years more than what's being done today.
Except for you get to the point where you're asking people to write emails. That's turned into a task now because texts are far faster.
And then maybe that's what you're going to do, because you can do polls on texting. Yeah. There are things you can do.
There's things
with technology.
There's things that can be pulled off, like I said.
Okay, we got another comment here. Let's see if it's something. This is from Yuri. He goes, for Pete and John, what is your opinion of Tony Blaine?
He's a medical officer in the United States Navy. So everything that Tony Blaine does and I understand the roots of it completely. How's
okay.
that?
Okay. I met Tony once, and it was at one of the meetings that Lifetime Fitness was doing when they were presenting their plan and doing like a community forum, and just shook his hand, said hello, and it was very brief. But I've always been watching him, and he's definitely a guy that stirs the pot. And in some ways, I think that's really good. And maybe in other ways it's disruptive, but sometimes disruptive can be good. But I will say this is that I was on you ever go on Nextdoor?
Yeah.
There's a lot of conversation about Poway politics on Nextdoor.
Yeah.
And I was sharing, I think, some segments of my podcast, and then he was ripping me on Nextdoor. He was calling me like a hardcore left-leaning Gavin Newsom liberal or something like that. Like, okay. Yeah, Tony Blaine is, he seems like he has very little filter. And that seems to be the popular trend these days with politicians.
Yes, sir.
Okay. We're going to see how this goes. I know it's, for me as a podcaster, is going to be plenty to talk about, and that'll be fun, I think. So yeah, Tony Blaine is the elected representative in District 2. We're going to have him for at least 4 years. So we'll see how all that goes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yuri, let me just tell you a quick story that's hit me in the last few days. Jimmy Carter passed away.
Yeah.
Jimmy Carter is the only president that I ever talked to. And it's on my C Stories website. But I just want to make a clarification because this just came to light. And the question that you had about Tony Blaine and my statement is he's a military officer in the medical profession falls into play here. There's figures of speech and anachronisms and ways of doing things that are different in the military than the way they are in the civilian world. And I spent 9 years in the Navy. I found myself in a situation where I was operating the latest, first ever over-the-horizon targeting system for the Tomahawk cruise missile. And I was told that we were going to be doing a demonstration, and I was asked to go ahead and proceed to target one of the missiles. So I sat down and I was doing that job, and they suddenly pushed a phone in my face, and I heard this guy talking on the other side. And I knew I recognized the voice, but I couldn't put my finger on who the hell it was. I just could not put the two together. And the reason for that, which has only come to light since Jimmy Carter passed, and they were replaying some of his speeches and stuff, he had a military officer way of saying things.
Like, give me an example.
I can't off the top of my head because I wasn't an officer.
Okay, but I got you. Yeah.
All right. And it suddenly dawned on me is that when he was president of the United States, he took this opportunity for a demonstration from the Pentagon and ended up talking to a sailor. But it gave him a chance to talk to somebody on a submarine, which is one of the things he had a passion for. So I think what probably took place is he broke into his U.S. Navy lingo and mannerisms. And that's why I couldn't quite put my finger on the fact that he was the president, because he sounded like a Navy officer.
But see, he probably loved the opportunity to speak with you.
Of it.
Yeah.
I'm certain of it.
Because he was reconnecting with his naval roots.
Yeah. I don't remember any of the details of the questions, but I can remember it was as if I was sitting in the sonar shack doing a normal sonar watch, and the CO came in and tapped me on the shoulder and says, "What do you got?" I'd know it was the CO, and I'd respond to him a certain way. There was just a way of people talking, enlisted to officer in the military, and it came through. And that's must have been what confused me and why I couldn't recognize him as being the president.
That's amazing. I mean, how many people get a chance to speak with a president who, by the way, that's what he was president in his 4 years, right?
Correct.
So he was the commander in chief when you talked to him.
Yeah. After it was all over, I handed the phone back to the CO. The CO talked to him for about 2 or 3 more minutes. And then finally they hung up. And I asked the CO, I says, "Captain," I says, "who was that?" I said, "I could have sworn I knew him, but the sound of his voice, but who was that on the phone?" He says, "That was the commander in chief."
Wow. It's funny how everything comes full circle, because you and I have had podcast episodes where we've talked a lot about your naval career in submarines. And then we had Charles McVane join us, which that was amazing having him. But I remember in that conversation with Charlie, he talked a lot about Rickover. You know, was he like an admiral in the Navy? I mean, he was a big time guy, right?
Oh, yeah. Rickover created the nuclear Navy.
Yeah.
All right. I ran into him as well. I was doing my usual thing, running between the mess decks and sonar and being on watch. And unfortunately, running between the mess decks and being on watch, you go right by the CO stateroom, which is where Rickover used to be staying. The CO would move into it, the XO, the CO stateroom would become Rickover's stateroom whenever he was on board for one of his tours.
Right.
All right. Rickover talked to everybody on board the submarine. He made a point to talk to every officer and enlisted guy on every one of his submarines that he rode. I got to give a lot of respect to the guy, because he would grill them with real nasty questions and just rake them over the coals. people panicked when Rickover came
Oh,
on board.
I'll bet.
All right. They thought they could lose their rank with this guy because in the blink of an eye, he did that to Charlie. I'll tell you that story some other time. But anyway, I'm coming up the stairwell. I go right past it, and Rickover says, "I've never talked to you." I said, "No, sir, you have not." He says, "I talk to everybody that rides my submarines. I want to talk to you." I said, "Sir, I'm a writer." He says, "What do you mean?" I says, "I'm not Permanent Ships Company, sir. I'm a writer. I want to talk to you." "Yes, sir." So he went in the stateroom. I went in. I'm panicking. Fortunately, he says, "So you're a writer?" I says, "Yes, sir." He says, "So why are you volunteering to do this?" I said, $75 a month, sir. That was submarine pay. You got a bonus if you rode submarines. He says, "Great answer. You're dismissed." And that was the end of it. That's most I ever said to Admiral Rickover was $75 a month, sir.
Well, you know, since President Carter passed, all these stories are being on the news and everything, and they've talked about Rickover.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and then I'm like, oh yeah, we were just talking about that in one of our little podcast episodes, which is cool. But the way you said that Rickover would go and talk to everybody and shake their hand, that reminds me of Jimmy Carter doing that on airplanes, shaking everybody's hand. So I wonder if there's a connection there.
I think there's that. Military officer.
There you go.
Sorry. They're like that. I went to school with this guy, a first class enlisted ET guy. And normally when you're walking down the street and two officers are coming at you and you're an enlisted guy, you start the salute first. You salute the officers and then they return the salute. That's the way protocol goes. Okay. And it says you're passing each other. Okay. I'm walking with this guy I was going to school with, and we were in our dress white uniforms for some special occasion or other. Walking down the street with him. Two officers come the other way. We got within about 15, 20 feet of these officers, and they stopped in their tracks, and they came to attention. My buddy and I kept walking.
Oh.
We got within 5 feet of the officers, and his name was Harmon. Harmon salutes the officers, and as soon as he brought his hand up to his head, like this, the two officers dropped their salute and continued on their way. I said, what the hell happened there? This is totally bass-backwards. All right. Harmon, what is that? He says, did you see that medal right there? I looked at it. I said, yeah. He says, do you recognize it? I said, no. He says, they did.
Oh.
I said, what's that? He says, that's a Congressional Medal of Honor.
Oh.
I said, how the hell did you end up with the Congressional Medal of Honor? And it's a long story. I'll have to put it in C story sometime.
But they could see.
They spotted the medal from where they were.
Really?
Yeah. Now, me, an enlisted guy, I could care less.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
All right. But officers were mindful of things like that. They spotted it. And they came to attention because he was a Congressional Medal of Honor winner.
Can I go on? Can I go on?
Era.
This is good stuff. By the way, Aussie jumped in here and he said that Rickover was a full admiral.
Yeah.
Can I ask you just a couple of tangent questions? I've always wanted to ask these because you'll know it being in the service. What's the deal with when military people, officers, enlisted salute? Some will go like this, some go like this. There's like, I heard it had to do if you won a war or lost a war. Do you know anything about that?
No, it's just how you were trained to do it.
Okay.
And there.
And then, and then, do you remember when President Trump, I think, was
different nationalities will have that. You'll see the British.
Yeah, the British. Yeah, I remember Benny Hill. They would do that on the show. Okay, and then it's always off the like near the temple rather than right by the bridge of the nose.
Absolutely.
And what's the proper definition of the meaning of the salute? Is it just a form of respect, or is there more to it than that?
No, it's straight respect.
Okay. Now, President Trump, in his first term, he was in Korea, and I think he had saluted a member of the Korean army, and you're not supposed to do that, are you?
No.
It's only within your.
He's the commander in chief.
Right.
He's holding the role of commander in chief. I hate to say this, but this guy in particular, but they didn't train him very well on how to behave.
Well,
he doesn't.
Yeah. Well, Carter would have known precisely what the protocol was because he was a military officer, and Trump was. Interesting. I know there's got to be a lot more to the whole salute and how far back in history that must go.
Yeah. Watch a president exit an aircraft.
Oh, yeah.
That salute comes at the bottom because the people that are down at the bottom of the ladder assisting him coming down are at attention until he passes.
Interesting. Yeah, there's a whole protocol to that.
It's all recognition of authority.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Respect. A sign of respect.
Okay.
Simple.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else?
Let's see. I think that's nice. So anyone else in the live stream, if you have comments or questions, we're going to probably be wrapping this up pretty quick. We've been going for 2 hours.
That's a record for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun. We hang out, we talk, we get to share the conversation with locals here.
Just to go back to Essie on the Rickover thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he was a full admiral. But the thing I think about Rickover more than anything else, and the thing that Charlie McVeigh thinks about more than anything else, is he's the guy that created the nuclear navy. We would not have nuclear power in our military if it hadn't been for Rickover.
So the nuclear navy is what powers the ship, but the ship could also launch nuclear missiles.
Yeah.
So it's both.
I don't think he had weapon systems in mind. He was a propulsion guy.
Okay.
Yeah. I remember Charlie got back from a mission. He was dog-ass tired. This is in his Seawolf days. And I can't remember the details of this story, but Rickover almost fired Charlie because Charlie wouldn't take the call. He was too asleep, and his wife wouldn't put Rickover on the phone. And Charlie got real upset as you almost got me.
Yeah,
fired.
I can kind of see that.
Yeah. You put Rickover's calls through no matter what.
So I guess I see saying here, Rickover was a full admiral. I know there's a rear admiral.
Oh, there's all sorts of stages.
I can never figure all that out.
Yeah, I never kept track of it either.
Yeah.
How many stars? There's 3-star admirals and 4-star admirals.
But then I think even when you get down to like lieutenants or corporals or whatever, they are different levels of hierarchy depending if it's the Army or the Navy or the Air Force.
Yeah, there's different names.
It's confusing.
Yeah.
I wasn't in the military. There's a lot I could learn from that.
I only paid attention to head motherfucker in charge. Sorry.
Yeah, that's what it's about, right?
Whoever
Follow orders.
Yep.
Okay. Any closing thoughts on Poway City Council?
The only thing I want to make clear to anybody that's still listening after 2 hours of this drivel is that I'm making my promise that I will not hold, if I'm assigned the position of a city council position, I will not hold it beyond the next election for that city council seat.
Right. That's important.
All right. Very important. The only reason I'm going for this appointment is because apparently we're not going to be allowed to have an election where the people get to vote.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like a chance at that. So the takeaway from this podcast is those people who are voting, please let them know that I would like that position.
So, yeah, perhaps the people that are watching this podcast could contact their city council member, representative, and tell them, hey, we want an election. Even though it's not our district, people in District 2, 3, and 4 can tell their council member, do an election, and also nominate Pete Neild as the appointment.
If you're forced into doing an appointment, please vote for Pete Neild. And I can get this stuff rolling.
And there you go.
No.
Okay.
Me in the city of Poway, one more time.
One more time. It's going to be good.
Let's hope so.
What's the timeline on all this?
21st.
That's when they're going to make the decision?
Yeah.
So is that where you make your 3 minutes pitch?
That's when I'm prepping for my 3-minute pitch.
And they're going to vote that night?
That's what I'm.
And the person would be seated probably pretty quick.
I think it right then and there.
Wow. And then Brian Pepin.
That's the other question. Shit. After 9 o'clock, I now bring this one. What if Pepin shows up on the 21st? They'll have 3 votes.
Right.
Then I don't have a chance. Because they'll put their guy in.
Right.
Yep.
But I wonder if there's any number of scenarios. I wonder if there's a scenario where they can never get 3-1 or 4-0. It just be 2-2 on every candidate that comes forward. Then what?
That's why I'm saying. Why am I running this way?
Right.
Hopefully I can get somebody to go my way.
Well, you're doing something different. You're doing something innovative. You're doing something I've never seen done before, in terms of local government. And it's refreshing. And it's consistent with what you've always said. Listen to the people.
Listen to the people.
Right.
Okay. 9 o'clock.
Okay, my friend. Good luck to you. Okay.
Thanks for the podcast.
Hey, my pleasure to have you here.
Good night, all.
Good night, all. And we'll catch you later on another episode of the John Riley Project. Have a great evening, folks. We'll see you.